All right, so a lot of the earlier, what they're calling the earlier models of the Neuralink implant, they used something that looks a lot like fiber optic cables, and that's what I was calling it, but apparently they're not fiber optic cables. They're these electrode threads, and in order to implant the Neuralink device into the brain, they would first send these wires, these threads, into the brain first. So those threads would go in, and then, your little Neuralink button. And I've read that sometimes it would be about 100 of those wires, thereabouts, give or take, that would be sent into the brain. Those threads would be sent into the brain before or as the chip is being, it's quite a lot of tissue damage potentially would be involved in that. A lot of scar tissue scarring would be involved in that. It would potentially take, the brain and, potentially take a good while to even begin to recover from something like that. I've heard that this was a really bad idea, come to find out, and that they realized that early on, but they continued to try to push the process. And one way that they would discover that this was a really bad idea is that those threads the brain would actually push those threads out. Like, the brain knows that there's not supposed to be inanimate objects in it, so it would push those threads out, and it would mess up the whole Neuralink thing, or at least mess up the part of it, making it to where the device wouldn't entirely work 100% the way that they would need it to, but they would find ways to upgrade and to advance, There's no telling how long they were actually able to use that device. They try to claim that they can't use it anymore because of what poor quality that it's in. I'm not sure if that's entirely true or not. They did at one point have me, like, one of my, I don't know, she seems like my op anyways. They're all frenemies. That's what I call them. She said some things over a YouTube video, and was like, come on, let's say this prayer against Neuralink. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll say the prayer against Neuralink. And I actually said this prayer rebuking Neuralink, and I began to have like convulsions, like spinal convulsions, spinal seizures. I'd never had that happen before. I actually had to go to the hospital, and then a lot of really weird stuff happened at the hospital and afterwards, and I would then hear on YouTube more about how they took my blood at the hospital and used it for nefarious purposes, and that they'd set all this stuff up. Anyways, it was all just really nasty, and it was all really bizarre how it all went down. And so I don't entirely believe that Neuralink no longer has access to my body through its device. I don't necessarily believe that they can't use it for anything. I just know that it might have suffered some damage over the course of time. And another thing that I heard a rumor about was that that my data was copied. My basically all the data that they've been able to gather from and about me, everything minus my own consciousness. Basically, I've been told that they were able to, in some form or fashion, have, that they've been able to compact that into something, and that they were able to come to me and to copy my data. And I'm not sure how they did that, of course, but I've heard that my data was copied and that it was put into a robot of Elon Musk's that he named the Rebel Bot. And I don't know if it was just my data that was copied and put in the bot, or mine along with other people's, but it has to do with having a prophetic mantle, and being a spiritual advisor. Apparently, billionaires and people like that don't actually all have they don't want to swallow their pride and ask for spiritual guidance or for a spiritual advisor for help. They don't want to go to a prophet or prophetess or an apostle or an evangelist. They don't want to go to anyone. They don't want to ask a psychic for help. They don't want, you know what I mean? It's like they don't want help from those people, and they would never humble themselves to ask for, an advisor, which is unusual because those are the people who are supposed to have advisors. Like, that's the whole reason that there are advisors, so that they can advise people like that. So he instead copied the data of advisors or an advisor and put it into what he considers the Rebel Bot, because, of course, for us to be trying to teach righteousness somehow to these billionaires is the equivalent of rebellion. Yeah, righteousness has become rebellion. I was actually staying the night. I was like a homeless person who was staying out in California, and I was sleeping outside in Santa Cruz in the woods, and I heard what sounded like the sound of like an officer's radio in the trees or something like that, like a walkie-talkie sound, but it sounded quite official. And it was like I tried to stay awake to figure out who it was, but I couldn't. Like, I immediately just fell asleep. And then within just the next week or something like that, news about that Rebel Bot came online and stuff. And that's whenever the YouTubers were talking about, that was around the same time that the YouTuber was talking about how they were going to come back to me to do something with the Neuralink device, which I'm not sure at this time how many times they've actually come to me and messed with the Neuralink device, or messed with whatever, or copied data, or removed data, changed data, whatever it is that they're doing. Anyways, I just had the chance in the car to make another video real quick. So, there's that. If you haven't seen the movie Minority Report, you've got to see it, because this is also going to tie into this idea of pre-crime. And so I just invite you and encourage you to please, freshen up on that movie, because that's one of the films that I swear this is in some forms and fashions almost modeled after. And that's all that I can say right now. Peace and love.